Hello, everybody. It's Friday Fire Time. Today, it's a little bit of a different video because I'm going to try prove that this time is different, that this cycle is different with a whole bunch of data points. I did a video yesterday about how Bitcoin could get to $1 million, and it was very well liked. But this is kind of like a mini follow-on from that, but more about the seasonality of Bitcoin and how it is fundamentally very different and how there's still maybe a lot of upside. Adam, thank you so much down there too. And thank you to the mods and chats. And yeah, Bitcoin's pretty weak today, 116.5, whereas other assets are going up. Ethereum is having a 3% day. It eventually got above the 4K mark. And Sol is chasing on the quote tails, which is good. And many other assets as well. But let's get into the story. Question is this time different? We'll also talk about the new playbook from Michael Saylor, how a little bit on new miner rigs, which is good, and how is it 40 days to go or is it something different, and who to be careful of, who is not looking out for you as well. Not financial advice as always, and shout out to everybody on Patreon too. This is from Hun Kim Tutorials. James and team are truly dedicated and irreplaceable by AI. It's time to join Patreon. I appreciate that. And I don't know if that's true. I think AI is advancing at such levels where I'd be surprised if in 2 years from now, anyway, I think you'd be able to curate your own content in 2 years much better than the time it takes me to create this content every day. Just by theory. I hope I'm wrong. Either way, let's get on with the story. Satoshi said exactly 15 years ago to the day, the utility of the Bitcoin exchanges made possible by Bitcoin will far exceed the cost of electricity used. Therefore, not having Bitcoin would be the net waste. That was from August 7th, 2010. Hard to believe. It's only 15 years and it's over $2 trillion. 55 million people use this puppy. And for him to be able to predict such things, although some of the vernacular is a little bit different, is quite impressive. And that takes us to where we are now, 15 years later. We are on the 5th cycle. And is this time different? Shout out to James. Check on chain. You may be noticing a pattern in that we are somewhere between a few weeks to a few months away from finding out if this cycle is actually different. This is the inspiration for this story. So we're going to look at some data points showing that maybe it's definitely not the same as previous cycles, that's for sure. And even last cycle was different because it was so manipulated and so full of bad actors. This cycle is a bit better. Let's get into the first big difference out there. First of all, Bitcoin has changed. And if you look back over the last 10 years, and this is from Econometrics, every bull market came with tons of volatility spikes, especially during the sharpest upward phases when new highs were made. Big price swings were part of the game. But this cycle, I mean, she is steady as she goes, just trucking along, moving 5% or whatever. Nothing like the crazy spikes we saw back in the day. And again, since 2023, Bitcoin has barely registered any big spikes. If you look at 2025, look at all the blue and the dark blue especially, that is no volatility. Now, we haven't seen any red volatility since 2022. And boy, there were dark times, even 2021, typically happening around middle of the year when the nasty stuff happens. And then September is supposed to be bad, but we're coming into September pretty shortly. And last time we had a rough September was around 2017. But here, as we go, things are getting quieter and tamer, even as we broke out to a new all-time high and then dipped last week. Instead of spiking, volatility kept falling and is now in the bottom 5% of all weekly readings over the last decade plus. And this is what happens. This is what happens when the big players come to town, when you got MicroStrategy stacking like a madman in the ETFs, chomping all they can, and sovereign states grabbing stuff, whoever they are, somewhere out there, and the miners hodling. Again, it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot harder for Binance to manipulate the price. Therefore, they're focusing on different assets to do that. They can no longer mess with Bitcoin. It's too big. If they force the price down to rip up shorts, maybe a big ETF will buy their bag. Who knows? Now, another little point. Let's get a cue in on exactly where we are. This is a cool chart. It's Bitcoin performance 2 years before and after the halving event. That's the halving right through the middle, and it goes to 2 years after. So if you imagine the red line is the current cycle, we are a little bit over halfway through the 2-year piece. Now, what's important to note here, again, the green cycle manipulated, but we did have a double top. The first double top came earlier than where we are now. The second double top came within the next 2 to 4 months. And same thing, right on cue, the same thing happened about month 17 after the halving, call it a year and a half later. That's when the big spike happened for the July 2016 cycle. The question is, are we going to get one this time? Or will things continue to be steady Eddie like in the past? So let's go look at where we are. Again, you can see clearly this cycle is different. The returns are diminished thus far. But this is a cool chart. Shout out to Vanguarded for the inspiration. Here, I mapped out on TradingView using some cool colors and indicators and stuff like that where we are. A couple of things. It's the Bitcoin price with the optimized trend. When it goes down, orange, that's a bear market. And then the halving cycle are the orange vertical lines. And then the piece I want you to cast your eye on is the cycle of the Bitcoin price and how it goes from the green bucket, which is the kill zone where you buy a lot. That's where I hate to say it, you sell kidneys to buy Bitcoin in those little green buckets, those green troughs. And at the top, you got the red peaks. The red peaks is where the price tops out. That'd probably be like the Tabby model going bright red at those levels as well, which actually does correspond. That's when you need to be careful. But if you look at the current cycle, and this includes way back to 2011, but if you look at the current cycle, we are far, far away from that red zone. Another visual, just to give you an idea of what the red zone looks like. I added arrows in case you couldn't see them. Red zone, price goes into the red zone, then it sells off and goes into the bear market. And that was in 2014. Red zone, 2018. Price hits the red zone and then goes into the bear market for a year. Red zone, 2022. Price goes into the red zone not once, but twice. And then we go into the bear market in 2022. And we tank until 2023. And here we are again, except just like the volatility, the price is not at all high. And the red zone, by the way, begins on this chart at $180,000. So what happens next? Either it means a couple of things. One, the cycle is elongated. Two, diminishing returns are there forever. Three, the end of the 4-year cycle has happened. I'm hearing that narrative all over the place. I've been talking about it for quite a while now, but now others are talking about that too. Or, I don't know, it's a slow coil up. And there's more on why that could be good. I'll get to that in a second. But just a reminder as well of the bear markets, that's where they were. And they come out as clear as day from this chart. But the other billion-dollar question is, we had the bear of 2011, the bear of 2014, the bear of 2018, and the bear of 2022. Drop a comment below. Will we get a bear market again? Or will we rip like gold did for 8 years after they launched the ETF? That's what I've been talking about for a year and a half. If history repeats, we are in good shape. Now, one of the big players driving the price of Bitcoin up to where we are now is Michael Saylor. And just a reminder for his earnings call, he believes he's no longer going to ATM MicroStrategy stock unless the MNAV goes to 2.5. Currently, it's about 1.56. Will it go to 2.5 again? Who knows? The only way that can happen is if the demand for the preferreds is completely through the roof. And if people need an on-ramp to Bitcoin. And what happens, as per yesterday's video, what happens if it's hard to buy Bitcoin? You know what's going to happen then? People are going to FOMO into MicroStrategy because that's going to be the only on-ramp for it. and then the MNAV will definitely hit 2.5. So we'll see. Either way, it's a fun time. Let me know if you believe elongated cycle. I know people are very upset. Price is only 116,600. Again, I'm delighted because my 2023 target was like 119K. So we hit that. So it's so far so good for me. And the tailwinds that we have for this asset are just unbelievable. Other new stuff that's happening too. And this timing could not be better. We know Jack Dorsey, he runs Square and actually founded Twitter as well. But they just launched their new Bitcoin miner. It's going to be released next week. And this could not come at a better time. And I don't know what this chip will look like, how efficient it'll be compared to the ASICs out of China. But he's been working on it for a long time. And he understands Bitcoin. In fact, probably 5% of people believe he could be Satoshi because he has a background in many of the ingredients that go into this. But I don't think so. I think he's too young. Either way, we shall see. Or maybe he could be Satoshi and he got so busy with Twitter and Square, he just let Bitcoin be. Anyway, of course, I don't buy into that. Some people might. But yesterday I did cover the fact that the miners were hit by tariffs because all the ASICs rigs come from China mostly and some from Southeast Asia. And the Chinese ones are hit with something like 57, 58% tariffs and the Southeast Asian ones, 21%. So Jack could not be coming to market at a better time. And in life, timing is everything. Now, speaking of chips and Jack Dorsey's new mining chip, you're going to hear a lot about AI and chips. And shout out to all the people in the UK there that say fish and chips. I thought it'd be good play on things saying AI and chips. Okay, AI and chips are going bonkers right now. A lot of crazy stuff happening. And of course, Doomberg was out fudding Tesla saying, oh, they're killing the dojo. No. I even wrote a paper on it like 10 days ago. Elon Musk is partnering with Samsung and, of course, TSMC. With Samsung, they're going to be making what's called the AI6 chip in their own background. And what's special about this? Put it in simple terms. They are going to change the direction of how they build stuff. And they're going to create as many of these AI6 chips as they can. There'll be 1 or 2 in every vehicle. There'll be 1 or 2 in every Optimus human robot. And there'll be a whole bunch on a board, which will become the new DOJO. And in fact, he even referred to it as DOJO3. So DOJO is not dead, but is going down 2 separate paths. The inference chip that's in the car today, AI4 is in the current vehicles, and AI3 before that, et cetera, et cetera. They're the only company that designed their own inference chip for AI self-driving, but that same chip will be used in robots as well. And this is the magic part. Now they found a way to crack the code on using that same chip, but a lot of them to make up a DOJO motherboard. Okay, so there'll be inference running on chips in cars when they're not being used, in the robots when they're not being used, and of course in data centers as well. It's going to be nuts, absolutely nuts. And speaking of chips and scale and everything else, Satya Nadella is the head of Microsoft, and he is good friends with Elon Musk. But what other world do you see? I just got to call this out, where you see 2 CEOs of multi-trillion-dollar companies just going at each other in public. It is a sight to behold. I think it's fantastic to see. It's wonderful. But basically, Satya said GPT-5 is their new OpenAI ChatGPT version that's coming out. Of course, Grok is superior, Grok 4. But Elon Musk nags at Satya saying OpenAI is going to eat Microsoft alive. And of course, Satya responds saying, people have been saying that about Microsoft for years, but we'll see what happens. I think OpenAI could be bad for Microsoft. It's good now, but it's not going to be the best AI. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll have to test AI or ChatGPT 5. And for those asking about the Solana ETF, a little bit of good news too. The eligible ETFs, the 8 that are in there waiting, we already have one called SSK from Rex Osprey. The rest will be approved by September 17th. T-minus 40 days. There'll be 8 more. And then a lot of money will come into Solana. A lot. Because remember, each one of these firms that has an ETF, they don't just launch an ETF, but they go on roadshows and they talk about it and they convince their clients that they need to have exposure to it. That's what they do. Consider them like the sales force for the ETFs. Anyway, speaking of money and money management and ETFs, This is crazy. Okay, I used to joke last year when the ETFs came out, there's a company called Vanguarded you. Well, these top US platforms are vanguarding you from Bitcoin, not only for our poor friends in the UK, with at least they have fish and chips, which is good, but Tefra came out with this, and they basically calculated over 31 trillion in US wealth platform capital is still restricted from accessing Bitcoin ETFs. That is absolutely bonkers. Absolutely crazy. Now, if you look at this list, the ones that have exposure to the ETFs unrestricted are Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Wells Fargo, Mariner, never heard of those guys, and Fisher Investments will kill you in fees. But the only two players up there are, and the one is missing would be Robinhood too, but Charles Schwab and Fidelity are two that I use. And of course, there's a reason why I use them, because I don't want to be vanguarded. And then in comes David Sachs calling this debanking. Why are the top banks still prohibiting or restricting access to Bitcoin ETFs on their wealth management platforms? Is this the last vestige of debanking? Yes, they're going to be disrupted. So they're holding on for dear life to milk their customers and all those crappy mutual funds that I've made fun of for decades as well. Ta-da! It's all happening, everybody. It's an exciting time to be alive. And a little bit of bad news too. ETH is on fire, broke through 4,000, but Ted Pillows is now talking about the same stuff that Marty's been talking about for years, and many others as well. But Ted Pillows points out here, I hate to say it, Binance is manipulating the ETH price and the entire altcoin market. Ethereum is strong, pushing to break 4,000, which it did today. But while institutions and whales are buying aggressively, but Binance are dumping millions of dollars of ETH, moving it to multiple market makers like Wintermute to sell off so they can keep the price down. Remember as well, that 100.67 means they don't have any ETH. They are using customer ETH to suppress their customers' ETH price. So they have a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Binance, no Sol. They're sending Sol too to the places. The message here is, everybody, do not trust Binance. They remain gangsters, perhaps allegedly, per Ted Pillows and Marty Party and everybody else. But get your crypto off the exchange so they can't do this to you. Very important. And speaking of Ethereum, shout out to Vitalik. Sometimes he says some things that are very wise. And I give credit where credit is due. But Vitalik Buterin says Ethereum treasury companies broaden ETH access to wider investors, but warns the trend could become an over-leveraged game if not handled responsibly. He's dead right. Things can blow up. And we have a lot of poop zombie companies FOMOing into treasuries to try and get a last gasp of air. So be careful of leverage in these companies. It takes you a second to analyze their financials and tell if they're a zombie or not. Stay with the ones that are good. And the simple rule of thumb, not term. And I think Saylor said this once, which is quite profound. Make sure there's an operating company behind that has free cash flow. Okay, that's key. If they have that, they're fine. If they got nothing going for them, it's a zombie, and they're just trying to pump their stock. Last story of the day, too. It's Friday Fire, a little bit of ugly news. The German industrial engine is sputtering. We are now down at levels we have not seen since the pandemic. It is shocking what's happening. The energy shock as destocking and a whole bunch of problems for the European Union, because Germany is the industrial engine. And when that industrial engine crashes like this, it's not a good sign. They need to turn this thing around. They need to fix the energy problem. And they need to stop all that bureaucratic nonsense and get back to being lean and mean engineering machines that the Germans once were. So shout out to Germany. Hope they fix that. Start with getting rid of your government leaders and putting some proper logic people in place. And finally, meme du jour. I thought this was classic. So if you look at the top categories, the biggest line of people is to criticize Bitcoin. Always, always, always. And I tend to be, by the way, in the most hated assets because they tend to be the best, the most critiqued. It's always the way. So you know you're doing something right when you're in an asset that everybody hates. But there are assets that people hate that are hated for a reason. We won't go into those. You know what they are. But I thought that was hilarious. Longest line to criticize. To trade, a lot of people trade Bitcoin. A lot of people gossip about Bitcoin. And some people buy and hold it, but not enough people take the time to learn it. It's fascinating to learn. I make videos almost every day so people can learn more about Bitcoin, and there's more to learn every single day. So that was my story today of why I believe this cycle is different, with the data points to back it up. We shall see. It's definitely elongated. It's definitely a bona fide asset class. It's definitely bringing in a ton of money from treasuries and ETFs. And we're definitely early. Remember, in 2 years and 6 months or so, the Bitcoin reward will be halved. Okay. To just not 450 a day, 225 Bitcoin a day. We know the price is going up. You just need to be patient, learn, and hodl. Hope you enjoyed the show, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Hope every day I want to teach you all something new. Big thank you to American Beijinger, TND Tesla, Sean D. There you are. You're always there. Legend. Rusted Woods, Adam Q, Anglo Blackson invested. Happy Friday, everybody. I am Colt, Vitruvian Maniac, Rusted Woods again. Sol Bull, B-Man. Sol Bull's excited the ETFs are coming. I bet you that. B-Man, as always, DBF 430 down there in Australia, and Sol Strider. Love you all, everybody. Have a good night. See you all tomorrow. Recap the week. And certain things are moving that shouldn't be, which is great. Certain things are not, but it's okay. Not all mass assets move at the same time, which is why we rotate. Thanks all. Good night.